The struggle that we've been talking about today, the fight between the ruling class, the bosses, the ones who legally own virtually all of the wealth of society, and the working class, us, the 99%, who produce the wealth and make this country function, is not a fight that our party is taking on from the outside looking in. Our party is born from the working class. All of our members grew up fighting in that class struggle individually. Maybe growing up as a woman, growing up as a black person, growing up on minimum wage, living homeless, being straddled with debt and school loans, or undocumented, in my case, et cetera, our struggles go on. And since our party doesn't see ourselves as separate from the working class, you will never hear us ask, what can our party do for the poor and working people of this country? Really an absurd question if we think about it. But you will hear this question phrased in many different ways by many different politicians in this upcoming election year. What can we do for the poor and working people of this country? The Democrats and Republicans are going to ask, rhetorically, of course, fronting like they really give a damn outside of their own narrow interests. But not our party, not the PSL. That's not our perspective. As workers, we think that the real question should be, what can we, the working class, do for ourselves? You see, we view the world through fundamentally different lenses. We understand that never before in history has the gears and the functioning of society been placed so squarely in the hands of our people, the working people. And so we do not see ourselves as powerless, but as powerful. As much as Bloomberg and Bill Gates want to talk about all the things that they give out and their philanthropy, we see the working class as the world's biggest philanthropists, giving of ourselves day in and day out to build the cities, to raise the crops, to advance the technologies that make this society as rich as it is. What can the working class do for itself? Well, we can organize, we can harmonize, we can unite, we can act in concert, and in doing so, we could run our own government. The good working people of this country and of the world, we could elect honest men and women to office. Those men and women of our communities could make just constitutions. They can enact just laws and repeal vicious ones. By acting together, we could shut down Wall Street for real and take hold of the biggest banks, like Brian was explaining, and the wealth they've stolen from our people. And that is what our electoral campaign is about. We want to say for real, yes, we can. Together, we are invincible. You know, growing up undocumented, my parents always told me, never let anybody intimidate you. Never let anybody try and make you feel lesser or unworthy or put you down because of your legal status. You are just as good and important as anybody else. And those concerned words from my mom and dad, they always stuck with me, and they still do to this day. And my family and I, we know that immigrant workers have been scapegoated as part of a racist campaign to blame immigrants for the problems of unemployment and this recession and all the social woes that affect the workers of our country and around the world. But it's not immigrants who are the problem. It's the plutocrats, the oligarchs, the capitalists, the 1%. And now that the Occupy movement has spread around the country under the slogan, the banks got bailed out, we got sold out, even liberal commentators have dared to speak out and expose the intense class polarization that is allowing a tiny few to become ever richer while the masses of people become ever poorer. Yesterday, for instance, the economist Paul Krugman wrote in the New York Times a piece entitled Oligarchy, American Style. Look it up if you want. Krugman is a liberal and not a socialist. He is a critic of the worst abuses of capitalism, but asserts that the problem is not the capitalist system, but the pro-business policies promoted by the Republicans. And in his view, the views that are too frequently embraced by President Obama and the Democratic Party leadership. It's significant that this article, again titled Oligarchy, American Style, appeared just yesterday in the New York Times. He uses the growing Occupy movement as a frame of reference for his argument. And the facts really speak for themselves. Currently, US banks, to quote the New York Times, are completely awash with cash. A record $8.9 trillion to be exact, of cash in the banks that are basically just sitting there instead of being invested in our communities. Cities very much like Chicago or where I'm from, New York. Cities that are desperate to save our social services and school budgets. In New York City, food prices have skyrocketed, and the latest reports from the food pantries, those who feed the hungry in our city, really paint a stark picture of what life is really like for the majority of the residents of New York City. In the richest city, in the richest country in the world, approximately 1.3 million people, mainly women, children, seniors, and the working poor, rely on soup kitchen and food pantries to eat. Approximately 3 million New Yorkers in a city of 8 million people, almost half, currently experience difficulty affording food for themselves and their families. 1 out of every 3 New York City residents who has a job has experienced difficulty affording food last year. If we were to take all of the families in New York City that have kids, a full 76% of them would report as having had trouble finding basic affordable food sometime last year, and that's a 38% increase since 2003. That's more than 3 out of every 4 families in one of the richest cities on the entire planet. And these stats can be replicated across the country. New York is definitely not unique. But where is all this wealth going then, if it's not going to us, the 99%? The US Congressional Budget Office put out a report recently, and it was quoted by Krugman in that article. And it shows, and I quote, essentially all of the upward redistribution of income away from the bottom 80% has gone to the highest income 1% of Americans, end quote. But in fact, the Times reports that it is the top 0.1%, the richest 1,000th of Americans who saw their real incomes rise more than 400% over the period from 1979 to 2005. Now, in contrast, these days, workers with a college degree are actually less likely to get workplace health coverage than workers with only a high school degree were in 1979. Comrades and friends, the current situation we find ourselves in is completely incompatible with democracy, and we've been talking about this. Can anyone seriously deny that our political system isn't fully based on the power of the dollar? Power in this country is not elected, it is purchased. No one can vote on where the banks invest or how industry will use the resources of the planet or whether to give everyone a job. These are decisions that are decided in the boardrooms over coffee and donuts by the 1%, or even more correctly, by the 0.1%. Our party and this campaign does not expect change to come from the electoral process, but rather be made in the streets. Fully understanding this, however, our party still refuses just to throw our hands in the air every 4 years and abandon our class in the face of this rigged election system. Instead, we intend to full-heartedly crash this party, figuratively and at times literally, and make sure that our needs are heard, that the hungry can say, hey, they represent me, that the persecuted, the hardworking, and the disillusioned can say, hey, there is another way. Who will call for the end of all US military bases? Who will call for the abolition of insurance companies and for quality health care for everybody? Who will hold high the needs of our communities, if not ourselves? This campaign is not going to be a long list of promises. This campaign is not looking for a nicer or more just capitalism. This campaign is about exposing the need to shake the bosses off our backs and nothing else. We respectfully ask everyone who is here in the coming year to do one thing. Well, 2 things. First of all, to judge us. Hold us to what we say we are about. Ask us why and ask us how come. Look at where we choose to fight in the coming year. Look at who we will choose to stand alongside of. And if you like what you see, and if you see the difference between us and the rest of the politicians, then join us, sisters and brothers, in making this campaign a success. As Malcolm X said, the future belongs to those who prepare for it. Let us prepare. I invite everyone to join us in this coming year. Thank you.